Welcome to another exciting episode of Inventor's Quick Tips. Today we are going to be talking about a special kind of patent application called a continuation in part application, or CIP application, and it can be useful for getting more patents out of your invention. So let's see how that could work. Now this is a follow-up to a previous episode of Inventor's Quick Tips that focused on what is called continuation applications as a way to help squeeze more patents out of your applications. And I'll put a link to that episode in the description for this video, as it may be helpful for understanding what we will be discussing here. But just to recap, these are some benefits of multiple patents. Having one patent is great, but having multiple can help add value to your company with a portfolio and give more coverage for your invention. So just for a quick recap, when the patent office finally agrees that you have some patentable subject matter, they will send out what's called a notice of allowance. And this basically says, hey, you got some patent claims here that we can allow, send in the required fees, and this patent will issue within the next few months. What we may want to try to do is squeeze more patents out of the information we have originally disclosed. And there's two primary ways to do that. One is the continuation application, which we talked about in a previous episode. Again, the link to that video is in the description. And in this episode, we're going to focus on the continuation in part application, commonly referred to as the CIP application. Now, what's the difference between the continuation and the continuation in part? Well, just to recap on the continuation, with a continuation application, you file an application that has new claims that is based solely on the original patent application. So you can't claim things in the continuation that you never talked about in the original application. Everything you claim in the continuation has to be based on what was in the original application. In contrast, the continuation in part, what we're going to talk about in this episode, is based mostly on the original patent application, but with some new details added. So let's see how that works. Here's an example. Hooray! I got a notice of allowance on my patent application for this gizmo that I filed a few years ago. And so this is a hypothetical example. If you're curious, this is a pencil sharpener, okay? So one thing about this pencil sharpener, I've got my patent on it and I'm making my pencil sharpeners. Life is good, pencils are sharp, and as you see here, my original design used 2 gears. But since the time I filed this, remember this was a couple years ago, I have now developed a new model I'm working on that can sharpen a pencil in half the time. And I did this by adding a 3rd gear to get more torque, higher RPMs, yada yada yada. So here you see my new design, similar to my original in many respects, but I've got this 3rd gear right here. Now that 3rd gear, shown in the blue arrow, or indicated by the blue arrow, was not mentioned in the original application, because I hadn't thought of it yet. If I tried to file a continuation application for my gizmo with this 3rd gear, it would get rejected because I never mentioned the 3rd gear in that original application. Now, of course, I could file a brand new application from scratch just to introduce my 3rd gear, but in a case where we have an incremental improvement, using a continuation in part type of application lets me introduce some new improvements like my 3rd gear, and for the elements dealing with the 3rd gear, I get a effective filing date of the date of this 2nd application, this CIP application I'm going to file. For other elements that were disclosed in the original application, I get the original application filing date. Why is that important? Because the older the effective filing date, the harder it is for the patent office to find prior art out there to reject me. So this type of application can have benefits compared to filing a brand new patent application. So let's take a look at a timeline. Suppose you filed your first patent application in January of 2021. Here it is for my 2-gear application. Then, at some point later, I receive a notice of allowance for my 2-gear application here in August of 2023, about 2.5 years later, right? Sometime before my 2-gear application issues, I'm going to file my continuation in part for my 3-gear application. Then, at some point later, my 2-gear patent application will issue. So, just to recap the benefits, looking at our timeline here, most of my effective filing date will be for my original patent application that was from January of 2021. Anything new will have an effective filing date of September 2023. But as you can see, most of my patent application will be given the filing date of January 2021. So this is, again, is a situation for when you have incremental improvements, it may be worth considering this kind of application. So just to recap, so for incremental changes, this continuation in part application can have advantages over filing a new regular application. Now, if instead of adding a 3rd gear, I redesigned the entire pencil sharpener and it didn't look anything like the original, then a continuation in part may not be appropriate. It may be more appropriate to just file a new application from scratch. But this type of application, this continuation in part, is useful for when you have an incremental improvement. A continuation in part is a special type of application used for when you are going to get a patent on something you previously filed, but with some modifications or improvements. Again, it's useful to get additional patents to issue based off information that's mostly disclosed in your original patent application, along with some new material. It can help you build a portfolio. Portfolios help add value to your company. If you're trying to build a company, having a patent portfolio can help make it more valuable, make it more attractive to investors or prospective buyers of your company. And as always, having more patents is useful for obtaining additional protection on your invention or technology. So hopefully this helped give you some information about this type of application. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on Inventor's Quick Tips.